Yes.
This is an impromptu video live. We have decided to do it about maybe 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And you guys get to hear. We've been having this conversation. Yesterday, we met in person because you just happened to come to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be living in Cincinnati. And I was like, wait a second, you're going to be down the street from me. We should totally hook up and hang out. And so here we are. And we've had a lot of conversations that we were like, man, we should have recorded this. This would have been great to record. And then we haven't recorded it. So then we decided, let's record now and chat together.
Yeah.
So, and then you guys, as you guys are here, put in the chat. We're going to just do some real talk.
Cool. So, yeah. Love it. Yeah. I mean, so here's the deal. We, talking yesterday, we titled this Infinite Banking Real Talk, because, well, in our conversations and I've been writing my book, just kind of updating my book, Cash Flow Hacking. And I don't know if anybody who's watching this has ever written a book, but when you go to write a book and you really, and I'm not talking like a little ebook or, 20 pages, 30 pages, like this is probably going to wind up being 200,
a big
200 something pages. Yeah. It's a big project. And it's like basically, everything that I've wanted to kind of like get on paper and organize it in a way that can have everybody understand what they need to understand to make the right decisions. I've said forever, it's like, man, if everybody just understood what I understand, then it would be a different world. They'd make decisions differently and it would just have such a great impact. And so, doing this has been just like a passion project, and it's been a lot more work than I expected, honestly, because the deeper I get into it, the deeper I go. It's like, I think I'm going to go to a certain place and then I just keep going. And it's been a really cool experience. And at the same time, the introspection and the research and the just really thinking about how to communicate the importance of whole life insurance. Right? Infinite banking, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of people call it infinite banking. It's properly designed whole life insurance and leveraged properly. Infinite banking is a great marketing term. A lot of people would say, Nelson Nash coined it. So I would say infinite banking is more of a philosophy than a product, right? Like, because Nelson Nash at his core is just kind of like this Austrian economist, libertarian, free market kind of guy, small government, right? Like, and so you'll find a lot of people that like infinite banking kind of fall into that camp. Personally, I utilize infinite banking, the term, because it's a great marketing term. And I mean, it's gained traction. Yeah. It's gained traction. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people look at infinite banking as something that it's not. And it's a, I rip on IULs a lot, and it's, as much as I do love, and I want to put this caveat out there, this disclaimer out there is like, I love infinite banking when it's done the right way. Yeah. But I do think people need to be careful about not getting caught up in all of the kind of side notes. Good morning. You don't want to get caught up in all the side notes of infinite banking, i.e. the political stuff and all the stuff that they get going. And, I fall prey to that myself sometimes because by nature, I am more of a libertarian mindset kind of individual. Yeah. So I get that. I get how that's like, kind of like, a moth to a flame, so to speak, sometimes, right? When we're worried about like what's going on in the world. But at the end of the day, we got to look at it as it's a properly designed whole life insurance policy that you leverage properly, that you manage properly. Yeah. And when you do, it will make everything you do in your life better financially. I always kind of, do you remember the BASF commercials? Do you ever watch football growing up?
Not really. I'm not a big sports person that much.
So I grew up in the 90s, right? I was, I'm born in 1980. Yeah. Grew up in the 90s. So the NFL, every week the NFL was on, broadcasts were a lot different back then, obviously, but every week the NFL was on, BASF would sponsor the NFL. Yeah. And BASF had this tagline. It was just, they would have these commercials. It was like, at BASF, we don't make your fishing line, we make it stronger. We don't make your paint, we make it brighter. We don't make your this, we make it that, right? Like we make it better. So their tagline is, at BASF, we don't make the products you buy, we make the products you buy better. Right? And so the way I look at it is, life insurance as an asset is missold a lot as an investment, right? And so I always kind of say, whole life insurance is not an investment. It just makes the investments you make better, right? It's the BASF of the financial world.
And I think in that, I came into this in a different point of view. And I would say I grew up in or lived in the south side of Chicago.
Okay.
Very different politically than, where Nelson Nash probably grew up. And just a very different kind of mindset and thinking about all of this. And then I came into this, and had I read some of the marketing, I probably would have been turned off a little bit from it. But as a business owner, as an activist, as somebody who wanted to, I remember what was the Wall Street thing that happened where they were like protesting Wall Street?
Oh yeah.
There was that was happening while we had the coffee shop, and all this kind of stuff was where I was from. You guys might hear some background here
they're getting pretty loud out there
in here, but hey, we're doing this live. We're doing it in a
I'm like, what?
hotel lobby. Anyway, but learning, hey, I need to have some stability in my business, regardless of whatever happens. If there's like riots in the south side of Chicago, I need to make sure I overcome that. Not that there would be, but there was, during that time, there was some interesting things that happened, right? And so from another point of view, politically, we can argue politics and all of this, but in essence, what this does is just build a really solid, safe place, not an investment, that I can use for possibly investments or for a stupid flood that I had to experience that it got me through that. Right. And there's so many other people out there that are like, IUL this, or I can do exactly what you do. And I know you mentioned this in one of your videos, the arbitrage conversation. And a lot of times people, as I talk to clients too, they're like, well, I could do this, I could do that. And I'm like, there's sometimes going to be, it's not always up and to the right. The policy, as you build a properly designed policy, there is a cost of insurance in the beginning, right? But from a guaranteed point of view, it will go up and to the right as long as you do your part. Right.
Totally.
But you have to do your part, one, but life isn't always up and to the right. That is not the way life is. And so I've had to deal with some clients that are like, yeah, you said this. I'm like, well, you didn't do this, right? You were talking about, I think in a video about loans. Right. And using the policy loans.
Yeah, I just did that one yesterday.
And this was something I've had clients before where I've totally helped them get out of debt. And they never did what Nelson Nash says is, don't steal the peas from your own grocery store, meaning pay your loan back. And I'm like, dude, you need to like pay your loan back. And then they get mad at me saying, well, this didn't work. You said this. I'm like, you didn't learn to budget. All right. Have you seen that in some of those conversations?
I think it's like anything else. It's at the end of the day, you never want to put your money into something that you don't understand. Right. So you need to understand. I think there's a lot of misinformation on the internet right now about the more popularized infinite banking becomes. I guess I'll put it this way. The more popularized infinite banking becomes, the more sensationalized it gets, the more kind of clickbaity titles there are that are out there, and they look really sexy. They look like amazing. The idea of positive arbitrage, it's a great, I don't know. It's a great like marketing thing. But it's no better than a lot of the people that are selling IULs and misrepresenting, what an IUL is going to do for you. And so I just felt kind of really compelled in the last week to do a couple videos that, talk about the truth about infinite banking, how policy loans work, how arbitrage can work, and how it is, I just did this video. It's talking about like over the past 40 years, can you make positive arbitrage in a whole life policy? The answer is yes. If you wait and let the policy mature enough, and if you, if you do it the right way, if you use the right companies, non-direct recognition, all these different things. However, even though you could, doesn't mean you always will be able to, because it's very circumstantial, not just on the policy and the maturity of the policy, but also environmentally in the fact that we've been in this decreasing interest rate environment. And at the end of the day, that is what it is. Like, as interest rates are going down, the dividend rates lag. So rates are lower than dividend rates. And so that's created this environment. Now, eventually they're going to cross over, rates are going to go up. And guess what? Dividend rates are going to lag, meaning interest rates are going to be higher than the dividend. So this whole idea of positive arbitrage is more environmental and circumstantial than it is principally driven on how these things work. And I think it's important for people to understand that. Now, I want to talk about this real quick. So Robert White, I don't know if you're still watching, but I saw your comments. You surrendered an IUL 2 months ago. You had $11,000 in it after watching many of the videos that I've made on IUL, which I have a ton of them. I just looked, my IUL playlist has 67 videos in it. I'm like, I might need to start another IUL playlist at this point in time. It's getting a little big. But you had $11,000 in it. So, that's, I don't know what to say. I'm cool. Good. Like, I'm glad that you at least are educated now, and you made, hopefully you made what you believe or what you feel like is the best and most educated decision for you. I'm not sure how old or mature the policy was. I don't know what your surrender fees were.
Yeah, because you could have maybe, I don't know if a 1035 would have worked.
Sure. Well, it definitely would have.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would have worked.
Yeah.
But is it good to do? And then what is good?
Yeah.
Right? That is another question, like, for you and for all of it. So,
So, I would say anybody that has an IUL, surrendering can be a good path. A lot of times it's not. I would say this is like, I would go back before you ever surrender a policy like that. I would go back and I would think, and I would say, why did I buy this? What role, what function in my life did I want or expect this policy to play? Right. And so when you do that, what happens is you kind of go back, and it makes it so you don't make an emotional decision about just like, oh crap, I learned this, I got scammed, or I got this or that, or whatever, however you're feeling, and just make this emotionally driven decision to just surrender it and be done with it and just like move on. Right. Because at the end of the day, you bought that policy for a reason. Right. Now, just because you weren't fully educated and you put your money into it doesn't mean that the reasons weren't valid and legitimate. Right. And so you want to still make sure that you're meeting those needs. And, if you've watched any of my videos, you know how I feel about this. Like, I'm a big believer. We all need to save before we invest. So saving money is a key component. We need to build our financial foundation, so then we can build on top of that. It's kind of like, you don't go out and build a house on sand. You bring in an excavator, you dig a hole, you pour a foundation, you do all the things, and then you build on top of it. And that's what we're talking about. And that I would say the whole life policy is the foundation that you build on.
Yeah, I think that's why I like, hanging out with you and on our channel, it's all about building foundational wealth. Right. And that's our channel, Wealth Wisdom Financial. If you're on LIFE180, go over to ours, you'll hear similar things. But like, literally, it's building foundational wealth. Like, the safety is savings is different than investing, even though the 401k likes to say you're saving and you're not, right? The 529 savings plan, right? Those things, it's all marketing on the Wall Street side, right? And then we're still trying to figure out, okay, how do I make savings sexy? Is kind of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, totally.
How do I make it where it seems awesome? And sometimes, and this is where I've worked with my clients, the sexiness and all of that of building a foundation
Yep.
kind of sucks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Building the foundation, learning to be a good saver, saving a little
Yeah.
bit and not seeing as much of the results, right? It's kind of like a house, right? When you build a house, that foundational work is, you're like, what the heck are they doing? Are they ever going to actually do anything? And they're doing all the plumbing, the down and the groundwork. And then all of a sudden the house grows up real fast.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned this in your video recently. That first 10 years is kind of like foundation building.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's that tortoise and hare thing where
Yeah.
you're like, wait, how did that get up so fast?
Yeah.
It's because the foundation is built.
Right. I mean, guys, this is the thing that drives me. And Robert, you know, I would say either one of us could help you with infinite banking. I mean, you can email Chris at LIFE180 and I'm happy to help you. Or what's your email?
Yeah, Brandon at Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. It's
Yes.
Eventually you go to wealthwisdomfp.com.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, just email one of us, whatever you want to do, and we could help you. But, you know, the thing that drives me to do what I do, and it honestly drives me nuts in a lot of ways, is the fact that we know that the market is cyclical, right? Yeah. We know it goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down, and it does it like clockwork. It's as predictable as the sun rising on the east and setting on the west. Is that the market's going to go up, we're going to have a boom cycle, and then we're going to have a bust cycle. And a lot of times, you know, and I believe we're in a bust cycle right now, you know? And it doesn't mean the world is going to hell, right? It doesn't mean that the sky is falling. It doesn't mean anything. It just is the natural cycle of the economy.
Yeah.
And so to me, if we know that that's the case, and we know that that's going to happen inevitably, why is it that everybody's financial plan is not baking that cyclical nature of the economy into our strategy? And so to me, the thing is, and this is why I talk about the importance of financial structure, right? And I know that can be a little overwhelming for people, because like the idea, like that phrase alone, maybe I should get better at my marketing with that. It's like financial structure. It just sounds, my wife is always like, you're such a nerd, you know, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to say. Like, I feel like this stuff is, you know, I'm not here to make it sexy. I'm here to make it make sense. You know, I'm here to help people, you know, have a better understanding so they can make better decisions for themselves. And so when we look at the cyclical nature of things, and then we look at what are people doing, you know, I mean, look around the world. The reason I called my company Life180 is living intentionally for excellence. And 180 is about turning the results around in your life, because 95% of the people in this world are not happy with their financial results. They're behind where they want to be or should be or whatever. And when you look at it like that, it's like, okay, if 95% of the people are getting poor results, I'm a big believer, you want to be successful, find people that are successful and emulate what they're doing. So you can't follow common, you know, Main Street strategies to get where you want to go. And what do most people do? They go to school, get a job, invest in a 401k, just start investing.
Because someone else told them to.
Because somebody else told them to. And then another thing that people believe is the younger you are, the more risk you can take. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's a phrase that I think everybody hears.
No risk, no reward.
No risk, no reward. And the challenge is when you look at it like that from your investment perspective, you get out of school, you get a job, you start investing in your 20s. Most people don't even do that. But even if you did, what happens is you invest. But if you don't save first, if you don't build your foundation, what happens is now you are, and I've done a thing called my Life180 pyramid talk on this, but what happens is you could feel really good for a decade, right? You can have nothing but growth. But if you don't have enough savings reserves, if you don't have an opportunity fund, if you don't have you know, yourself positioned to be able to be what I would call an opportunistic investor, what happens is you become the antithesis of that. You become the opposite of that. And you become one of the masses, one of the sheep, one of the cattle that gets slaughtered during the down cycles. Because what happens in down cycles is the economy goes down, the stock market goes down, real estate values goes down. It's contraction across the board typically, right?
Well, and then there's going to be, what I think about is like that blood on the street, right? There's going to be a lot of that, but there's also going to be a lot of people who are making millions, right? And I was thinking about this from Mark Cuban as I watch some of Shark Tank. He
Yeah.
even mentioned on one of his things, he's like, I have this much in cash reserves. I have this much in liquidity.
Mm.
And I was like, man, that would be crazy
Mm-hmm.
for some people to say, wait, he could be investing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he said, I do that for mitigating risks and emergencies, whether it's a life insurance policy. I don't know. But I do know that he mentioned it on there. And I was like, that's because he built a good foundation. And everybody knows who Mark Cuban is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to risk more.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, well, he's just different than I am. I'm like, no, he's no different. He just built a good foundation.
Yeah.
And now he's been able to leverage and use it. And he doesn't just say, I want that deal. He thinks about it, right? And I think about this from our method, and why I love, hanging out with you, is our method is the STILL method. And it's inverse of chaos, which is confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful. This is our tax code. This is our 401ks. Most people don't even understand how to read that stuff, right?
Yep.
So chaos, right?
Yep.
And what we need to think about is STILL, which is our method called the STILL method, which came from the Bible, by the way.
Yep.
And it's setting your sights, right? You can start this when you're 12, when you're 15, when you're 21, but setting your sights. Where do you want to go, right? You're not going to know, how to overcome this mountain. You might just see a little bit. So you set your sights of where do I want to head up and build, and reflect on those things. Then you track your in and out, inspect your progress, look for 1% adjustments, and live deliberately. The policies in itself is just a way to set your sights, track, inspect, look for 1%, and live deliberately. But really, the main thing I think about is when it comes to investments, when it comes to anything, it's investing in what what you want to know about, because everybody's a real estate investor right now. And I'm like, well, what kind of real estate? What, and there's different answers.
Yeah.
For different things, right? And
Totally.
so sometimes people apply advice for real estate, and maybe they're a buy and hold real investor, not a flipper.
Yeah.
And that's different.
Totally different strategies. Yep.
Different rules. And we have to think about how do we then build the foundation and not just apply, even from us on Facebook and YouTube and all this. Don't just listen to us. How does this strategy help you do what you want to do?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, money is just a tool to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. And you need to, I think one of the things I came up with when I was writing the book, started the book a couple months ago, is if you are where you are in life because of who you are in life, right? Yeah. And if you want to get to where you want to be, you need to grow. You need to become more. And it's interesting, I think we probably talked about this a little bit in our last video, but it's interesting that people know, like I call it the 4 F's, the faith, family, fitness, and finances, right? And so it's interesting that, everybody knows that you can't outsource your success with your faith, you have a big faith background and planning churches and all that stuff. Like I can't have you do my praying and read my Bible and do all my growth and build my relationship with God, right? I alone can do that for myself. My relationship with my wife and my kids, like my family, I can't outsource me being a good husband and dad, right? Like I just can't do it. My fitness,
you shouldn't.
Well, you can't. Like, no, it's not even you shouldn't. I feel like I'd be a dirtbag if I tried. Yeah, right. But like, even if I tried, like, look, there are people out there that are rich, quote unquote, that have tons of money that can afford to outsource all that.
Yeah.
Right. And they do the nanny thing, and nothing wrong with a nanny. Trust me. Like, I get that. Like, but they do it all. As long as you're not doing that with the idea of trying to disconnect from your family, right? And that's the big thing. Cause like I get being busy and traveling and all that stuff. I'm away from my family right now, right? Like we're in Cincinnati, my family, my wife and kids are back in Arizona at the moment. So I get that, but you can't outsource your success with, being that role, right?
Yeah.
My wife and I just have an agreement, right? Like I work a ton, I travel a lot, I'm away a lot. And we agree, and we have this like massively clear communication, right?
Yeah.
And we give each other that leeway to communicate clearly and boldly. A lot of times the way my wife and I communicate, it makes people uncomfortable because we just are so real with each other. And I think a lot of marriages don't have that, right?
And I think that's the challenge, right? And in most people, right? One is we don't communicate with ourselves. We don't actually know our what we want in life. And I kind of think about this might be nerdy. This might be crazy to think about. I told this to a guy when I was at a men's retreat.
Okay.
And I said, kind of the way I think about it is you're 75 years old. How do I reverse architect and where am I going to be when I'm 75? And what kind of grandparent do I want to be almost, right? Because when I'm 75, my son is 4 years old. The things that I'm doing now are going to really impact what kind of grandparent almost, right?
Totally.
Because it's going to build hey, what are our family mantras? What are we doing on a regular basis? All those kind of things. And again, life insurance, the policies are just part of the puzzle, but it's really reverse architecting, right? How do I reverse architect? And I know with the policy that it's going to be made, it's going to finish. Either I'm going to retire, die, right? And how do I set that up for them, for my grandkids who don't exist? And how do I then build in those things that are going to get me there, whether it's relationships, right? I intentionally reached out to you, right? To build the relationships, to build success, whatever success means to you, but you have to think through that. And what you mentioned is you and your wife communicate. This is where I was going with this. One of our biggest rules of our house, when I had roommates, when we had a church plant, communicate was our rule. Still number one rule. You will solve a lot of problems. You will not have a lot of problems when you communicate. And what I love, again, with the policies, it's pretty clear communication.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It's in the contract.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it's like when I'm traveling, and when we say communicate, it's like you really got to do it, right? Like it allows, I'm able to be way more effective because my wife and I trust each other. Right. And so I'm able to push boundaries that a lot of people won't push. Or maybe if they did push them to the level that I do, it would damage their relationship with their spouse. Right. But I'm not worried about that because I've given my wife complete authority. Like, hey, honey, if I'm pushing it too much, you tell me. The next week I will back it down. Right. Like, because she always knows that I'm going to prioritize her and the kids over everything. Right. No matter what. Like I'm going to go, a million miles a minute. But at the end of the day, like I'll come back. And it's interesting, with personal finance, when we think about our faith, our family, our fitness, and our finances, those are the four pillars, I think, of life. That if you said to most people, like, what are the four most important areas of life, right? Like, I think it all comes down, fitness, health, kind of being that thing. Money plays into it on a huge level. And, I would argue that money has an impact. It's almost the foundational element of all of it outside of faith. Obviously, faith is the foundational element, but I would argue that money and our relationship with money and who we are with money, how we show up with money, how we leverage money impacts all those other areas, even our faith, the way that we're able to serve on missions and give and tithe and support our communities and churches and all those different things. The way that we're able to show up in our marriage, more divorces are caused because of financial stress than anything else. The way that it's able to help people with their health and their fitness, because more disease is caused because of stress, right? More stress is caused of financial stress. And so I could argue that if you get your money right, you'll live a healthier, happier, more successful, fulfilled life, not just financially, but in your relationships, right? And so, and you'll be able to make a greater impact and live more intentionally. And that is what I love to help people do. And the reason I love whole life insurance is because we're human.
Yep.
And we all make mistakes, and we all make emotional decisions, and then we try to validate those decisions with logic. And having a whole life policy, it's like a forced savings plan, right? Like, and it's a filter that every decision you make can flow through, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, I know I need to save before I invest.
Yep.
But I'm saving with the intent of investing. So I need to start with the end in mind. I need to think about, what do I want to do? Do I want to be a real estate investor? Yes. Okay. What do I do now? I want to go out and I want to get my first property. Okay. What do I need to do to get that? I need to save money. Okay. How do I save money? Now, if I say I'm just going to put money in a savings account and I'm going to wait. Now, some people may have the discipline to do that. Most people don't. So I also believe that we need to stress ourselves in a healthy way more than we do, right? And what I mean by that is, a lot of people are like, I don't want to have a premium payment. I don't want to have I only want to, let me preface this. I don't think you should push it too much. Like, you got to find that kind of happy medium and understand your cash flow. That's why it's important to work with somebody that can help you kind of figure out what that is.
Yeah. And change if things
100%,
get hard, or,
100%, and design it so there's some flexibility and room to move about the cabin, so to speak. But at the end of the day, having a whole life policy is basically a forced savings plan.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing I've been thinking about recently. Again, I'm a person of faith, and the tithe model, right? So in the tithe model, 10% of all you earn, or 10% is going to God, right? So this is what's interesting. 10% off the top is a tithe, right? God set it up in motion already, how to finance things, how to structure, right?
Yeah.
It's all his anyway.
Yep.
So then if we think about it, and then there's the richest man in Babylon, 10% of all you earn is for you to keep, right? Well, all right. So that just tells me 10% goes to God, right? That's 90% left. 10% goes for me to keep, right? So where's the best place to put it? For me, I'm like, well, put it into a life insurance policy, 10%.
Yeah.
For long term, right? And I do what I call the 10-10-10 savings rule. 10% goes for long term, 10% medium term, and 10% short term. I already gave 10% to God, right? So then that leaves me with 60% of living, right? And short term is like Christmas and some of that, but I'm still saving, right? It amazes me how many times people are at Christmas time, right? And people are freaking out because Christmas is here.
Credit cards.
I'm like, but if we lived with the percentage model, the model that God put forth, and we lived with that, we live within our means. One is we're going to set up a priority of what's important.
Yeah.
We've already set up the priority, and it's all percentage. So as my income grows, it's a percentage base.
Yeah.
This is the crazy thing from a faith perspective. I actually tithe more than I made 10 years ago when I had our coffee shop.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of money. And I could say, well, that 10% could be used somewhere else. But I've already thought out the decision. I already know where I'm going with it. And it's a non-negotiable. So we have to have those non-negotiables just as much as we do with our faith, with ourselves, with our family, and building those non-negotiables of going to the gym, having date night. Those kind of things are really important, whether it's policy or not.
It's interesting. It really all comes down to your intentionality, and understanding like what you want your life to look like. And it's like the old fable of the Mexican fisherman. Have you heard this?
I don't know. Maybe.
So there's this funny fable, and it's for all I know, it's probably a true story, but it's all about like, so this New York banker, takes this trip to Mexico. Yeah. And he goes down into the Gulf of Mexico, and this cool little Mexican village, and he meets this guy that has a fishing boat. And the guy, is all he does is he wakes up in the morning, he goes down to his boat, fishes, hangs out, loves the sun, loves his life. He's just there anyway.
Yeah.
And if tourists come by, he brings them out, and because he's doing it anyway, he's doing what he loves to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so then this banker sees him and he goes out, has a great experience with this Mexican fisher, and they have like all this success. And the guy, they get back to the dock after fishing all day and bringing in all these fish and having, just wild success. And the banker's like, listen,
we can do all of this.
Like, that was the best day of my life. Like, you do such a great job. Have you thought about scaling? Have you thought about doing all this? And the fisher's like, no, I haven't. He goes, well, you could make millions of dollars. Like, think about like what that would look like. He's like, well, what would that look like? And he goes, well, we'd be able to get you more boats. I could raise some capital. We could go get a lot of boats. We could come back, and make all this money and you could build this empire and whatever. And he goes, okay, then what? And he goes, well, then you'd be worth millions of dollars. We'd sell it off. He goes, well, then what would I do? And he was like, well, then you could be able to wake up in the morning and do whatever you want and, live the life that you want. He's like, well, I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's interesting. Like, a lot of times we lose sight of that and we're just chasing the wrong things. Yeah. And, the big thing is that I look at it like this: is the most valuable resource that we have. And everybody knows this, right? Is time, right? Time is the most valuable thing that we have. It's the one thing that we can't replace. Everybody kind of intrinsically knows that, yet we don't live in accordance to that understanding. Caleb, did this talk where he's talking about Warren Buffett. Yeah. And Warren Buffett, he was like, who here would trade places with Warren Buffett? Warren Buffett's worth over $100 billion, but he's 91 years old, right? Yep. So I'm not trading places with Warren Buffett, because if I trade places with him, it's not bank accounts, it's his age. Yeah. So I would forfeit the next 50 years of my life. Yeah. Am I willing to take $100 billion? The answer is, like, if I wanted to be the sacrificial lamb and set my family up, maybe, but aside from that, like, just talking about my life and my contribution and being here with my kids and mentoring and shepherding and whatever, everybody knows, like, very few people, I think, would trade places with Warren Buffett at 91 years old, yet nobody lives in according to that understanding.
And again, thinking about, like, our life and our world is busy, very busy. Yeah. And we crowded out with Netflix shows and who knows what we binge watch. I do watch shows, but I also know I have a 4-year-old, right? And my 4-year-old's not going to be around, right? Like really 18
and
years.
And it flies, brother.
And I'm like, what can I do? How can we build? What are the mantras? Yeah. Like, he knows some of our family mantras. Yeah. Life is an adventure is a mantra that he knows. Sundays are family fun day. We will go on an adventure. Sometimes it's an adventure to go buy all kinds of stupid crap that we don't need for Christmas, but that was an adventure. And he's like, one of his adventures right now, this is fun, is he hated Costco. This is just
what?
Yeah, he hated Costco.
Okay.
Hated Costco because he hates shopping, which I guess that's from his mom.
4-year-old?
Yeah,
really?
Hates shopping.
Already knows that. Okay.
However, he learned about sample day.
Oh, yeah, nice, sample day.
So now, all the time on his adventures, he wants to go to Costco. All the time. I'm like, really? Can we go, like, to the mountains or something? No, I want to go to Costco. And I find that just really crazy.
That's funny.
But it's not to buy stuff; it's to eat samples.
All right.
So, anyway,
that's funny.
But
it's the adventure. It's the idea of just having an experience and the kids just knowing that that's built into life.
And here's the thing on the samples. He doesn't know what he's going to eat. It's an adventure. We don't know what's going to be on the little thing. Costco is a little, anyway. So anyway, with all that, we should probably close up here.
Yeah.
Guys, really, infinite banking, real talk, we've there's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of, hype in the market, hype in Wall Street. There's a lot of this person is evil, that person's evil, or, all this. Really, here's the thing. Does it amplify what you want to accomplish in your life? And can it help you get there further, maybe faster, more efficient?
Mm-hmm.
I think that everybody should have this in their portfolio.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm, again, reverse architecting. But is it a shortcut? Is it going to, rate of return, all this other
Yeah.
stuff? I don't know. Rate of return of
Yeah.
going to Costco and doing all that, I could work.
Well, it's just time, right?
Yeah.
Like there are certain things in life where you are, there's going to be real returns, and then there's certain things it's just you're investing in those relationships, and there's not going to be a monetary return. I would say like this, is Tony Robbins always says that one of the human needs that we all have, everybody, is progress, right? Yeah. And so I would ask everybody to think about like what you're doing right now. Is it providing you progress? Is it getting you closer to where you want to go? And for most people, sadly, the answer is no. And it's not because what you're doing is wrong. It's because you don't even know where you want to go.
Yeah. And the still method.
Yeah.
You need to ask those and then look for 1% adjustments.
Yeah.
Not,
right. And do things consistently over time. People way overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, and they underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. Yep. Right. Like I promise you, if you focus on something and you commit to a process and you align your money and your philosophy and your strategy with your money, with your values, with your beliefs, and you start executing and you start making those incremental adjustments, you are going to live a life. You're going to become somebody completely different. 2 years from now, you're going to look in a mirror and you're going to be like, wow, remember when I was in this place and I couldn't imagine it all to be possible. Right. Yeah. It's because you have so much more in you than you realize. You have so much more ability than you even realize. And that you just have to be willing to show up and execute and do it. And if you do, and you align your money with your values and beliefs, and you execute accordingly, the sky's the limit. And so it's awesome.
And as you, again, think through this, having the right people alongside you, like for us, I love being the coach in that regard for this and helping. I'm with my clients, till death. Right.
Yep.
And just to be able to say, hey, we've done this policy. Where are we at? Like, how do we build and how's this helping you get to where you said you wanted?
Yeah.
And how's that align with everything? And that's why I love this business, and why I love, seriously, I used to be in the pastor world. I learn a lot more when I do a financial analysis and when I do those appointments of what they really value.
Oh, totally.
Right? And oftentimes we say things and our actions don't align with it. And this is what I want to help people do, is help you align your actions with your values and what you say you want, right? Mm-hmm. And using infinite banking is great if you use it the right way, right, in general, but also know it's not going to be the end all be all. It's just a part.
No products are going to solve your problems. You gotta grow. You gotta become more. And that's for everybody. We are where we are because of who we are, and that's everybody. Like a lot of people would kill for my life, right? Yeah. But I'm not done. I want to keep growing. I want to keep going, and that it's a journey, and you got to just kind of embrace it. And it's a lot of fun when you do. Yeah. And so that's it.
Yeah. So, well, you guys, thanks for being here and joining us for this live here. If you're on LIFE180's channel, thanks for watching, and keep listening to him. If you're on my channel, if you're not on my channel, go to my channel, Wealth Wisdom Financial. Go subscribe. It's a smaller channel. My wife and I lead it together. Mm-hmm. So go there, subscribe, watch a bunch of videos. And again, you'll see us again together. Like, this is really a passion for both of us, and really it's about making and changing lives. Yep. And here's the fun thing. I don't know the impact we will have. I even working with the clients that we have, It's life insurance. It's going to impact generations that we won't know.
Yep.
This is just amazing when you sit back and think about it. So if you guys want to reach out to me at wealthwisdomfp.com. And
you could just go to, for us, you can go to either life180.com and there's a link in there to set up a call, or you could just email Chris at life180.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody, help anybody, serve anybody that wants to reach out. So
cool.
That's it. All right, guys. Well, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk to everybody soon, hopefully.
Awesome. See ya.